Assalamu alaikum, and thank you everyone for joining today. We are here in week 7 today, and we will be discussing about the data collection technique and the method and the issues that we need to tackle when we are actually designing as well as writing the issues that relate to the data collection. So maybe 1 or 2 minutes we need to wait for other people to join. Then we start with our today proceeding. Okay, so today we'll be discussing about the data collection and the learning objective or the outcome that we like to cover today. That the qualitative and the quantitative data that we need to collect, and then the type of the data and data collection strategies according to the data that we are looking for a qualitative or quantitative, and the triangulation of the data collection approaches. So actually there are different approaches available, different methods, tools by which we can actually collect data. So here we understand that there are two type of data that we are looking for: a qualitative data or quantitative data. So qualitative data is more related to the meanings; it's not related to the numbers. And here we are more interested in the attitude, behavior, and experiences of the respondents, so that we can get the data by the mean of the interview or the focus group to get some inside meaning. On the other way, in the quantitative data that actually come with number that actually based on the statistics. So a large scale of data, the survey data is required, and normally data collected through the survey or the questionnaire are structured where and when to actually use the different type of the data. So we use quantitative data when actually we are willing to conduct some statistical analysis, want to be precise, know what we want to measure. It means beforehand we have an understanding what we are measuring. Any concept, construct, any variable that actually we are quite aware of that what we are measuring, want to cover a large scope. So it means the data is collected from a large community. So that's why quantitative data is our option. Qualitative data, when actually we want to go more into narrative or more in-depth understanding our information, so then we go for a qualitative. In a general sense, we are not much clear, not much able to have a clear understanding at the start what to measure. So not sure about what you are able to measure. It means we are more exploratory, we are having less informed at the start stage. So that's why we are going for a qualitative data or qualitative study. Do not need to quantify the result. So these are the main differences between qualitative and quantitative data. So quantitative data pre-hand at the start, we have a clear understanding what we are going to measure. The statistical analysis is the objective, precision is the objective at hand, and we are going to have the data from a large group of community or the sample. In a qualitative, we are more interested into narrative or going in depth. We are not having a clear understanding what to measure. Actually, we are more in exploratory or uh, getting an understanding stage, and we are not willing to quantify. So these are some of the differences that what we actually looking for and how we decide what kind of data that we will be collecting. So data collection strategies, there are number of strategies are there, but it means all the strategies are good enough. They have their own pros and cons, but there is no best way. It depends what you need to. It means it depends on what is your objective, what you want to have an understanding, what you want to have question at hand to answer. So it means what you need to know, number or story. It means you are looking for a quantitative or qualitative. Where the data reside. It means you need to understand source of the data. It is somewhere with the people. It is somewhere with the documents or the source files. It is somewhere in the surrounding or environment. So that is actually the question that we need to ask from why I can get the data, where the data reside. Resources and time available, that's a very critical question. What kind of resources that are available to me as well as the time, because resources are actually giving us understanding the right way to do the data collection. So if resources are less, so we have a different option. If time is less, so certainly our decision may be different. So resources and time are actually two prime criteria, are the variable that actually affect our understanding and the strategies that we adopt for the data. Complexity of the data to be collected. Sometimes it's very complex to contact the data source or the people or the situation where the data reside. And sometimes it's very easy to collect the data. So that's complexity in the data collection is actually making a way which strategy is the more appropriate for our situation. Frequency of data collection. Normally, when you are able to connect with the data source multiple times, so then actually you may go for a multiple data collection. The frequency is more than one. But in a normal scenario, the data collection may not be more than one. It depends actually on the resource at the time, but normal strategy for the data collection that actually is a single source, single time data collection. I mean, one source is there from where we are collecting the data, and one time we are collecting data. Cross-sectional. Many people understand it's a cross-sectional kind of study, where one source and one time we are able to connect with the data source to collect the data. Intended form of the data analysis. So freehand, we need to decide that we are going for a quantitative or qualitative kind of analysis, because if we are unable to answer the research question at hand, I mean the data is not good enough to answer the research question. So that's why freehand or beforehand, we need to have an understanding what are the data analysis we are going to have and what kind of data that we must have at hand to answer the research question of our research project or research study. So rule of data collection, use multiple data collection methods. So it's a general call. It may not be mandatory, but uni method of data collection are more frequently employed by many of these scholars or the researchers, but multiple data collection method or sources are analyzed. Use available data, but need to know. Sometimes we are actually using the secondary data or data at hand. So we must actually be able to understand and may be able to answer as well, having a clear idea how the measure was defined. In data collection and in the measurement, actually, it's very problematic because one construct, one variable or a concept have a multiple definition. And because of that multiple definition, the data by which it is collected, it means the definition, then the scale which actually based on the definition are varied. So how the measure were defined, that's very important. Then how data were collected and cleaned. I mean, what are the source of data? The data collected with the instrument or a survey. It may be collected by an interview, structure interview, or otherwise it may be a semi-structure or interview, a kind of data. How it is collected and cleaned, because that information is understanding the validity and authenticity of the extent missing. So sometime when we are actually looking for a secondary data or the data at hand, it may not be all the data and data is cleaned. Sometimes the data is missed. So if a larger volume of the data is missed, so it may not. Another issue that relate to the data, available data, that is accuracy of the data that is ensured. How the data accuracy is ensured, that the data at hand is actually quite good to use for another kind of analysis or getting meaning as well as some analysis that we need to perform. So these are some of the rule or the tools we need to keep in mind while we are actually having the data. If must collect original data, it means primary data or first-hand data, be sensitive to burden on other. It means while you are actually contacting the other people to give information to you, keep in mind someone connecting with you, asking for data, how you feel. Do you feel burdened? Do you feel occupied? Do you feel that it is quite compelling to answer in one way or the other? So how you feel? So trying to be empathized with it and be sensitive to the information that we are going to collect from the other people. Pre-testing, we already discussed in last week. That's in the instrument development. That pre-testing is the most important aspect when we are actually having the primary data collection. So pre-test and try to test it 2, 3, 4 times as much as possible. Like you can say when we are designing, then actually going for maybe a ethics committee within the university or the department, then actually going for a kind of professional review, then actually maybe pre-test at small size, 30 or 30 plus sample size, then maybe you are able to have a clear picture of a data collection instrument that may be good enough to go for larger data collection. Establish procedure and follow them. It means the protocol may be in kind of a instrument, then the directions, how to actually collect, how to answer, and what kind of the issues that may be evolved and how to solve. Maintain accurate record of definition and coding. It means prior hand, we need to actually define the variable, then their coding as well as their question item that we are going to use for the data collection. Accuracy of the data coding and the input of data. So there are actually non-sampling error that may come when actually we input the data wrongly. Coding may be problematic. One variable added to another variable, data score or the data values may not be added rightly. There may be some missed values and we actually put some wrong value there. Uh, these are some of the data cleaning issues that maybe we'll take later on in the next week when we are dealing with the data analysis. So accuracy of the data while actually inputting, coding stage. So these are very important. Maybe a wrong input or actually the coding may actually flaw data. And later on, we are unable to track. So first of all, we have to have the record of the data. Then actually input and coding must be done with 2 or 3 people to actually keep the accuracy. Use structure approach. So there are actually 2 approaches for data collection: structure and a semi-structure, unstructured approach. So we use the semi-structure approach for the data collection. We need to address extent question. It means we have a clear or defined question at hand where variable or the understanding is quite appropriate level. So we go for this kind of structure. Have a large sample or population. It means we already understand that we have to collect data from 100, 200 plus. So it becomes a large sample. and we have a structured population there from where we can actually draw the. We have an understanding what we need to measure. It means the variable and their question are quite actually straightforward. Need to know result numerical. We need to actually describe the result in a numerical manner. It means we already have an understanding that statistical technique is our approach for analysis. Need to make comparison across different sites or intervention. It means maybe experimental design interventions. It means maybe in a stage one, we actually give them something to experience. Then actually in stage two, we ask about that experience, and maybe there is some group that is not actually given that experience. So that maybe intervention, and we need to actually make a difference. How the group that is actually having the intervention, the other group that don't have the intervention, how they differ. And similarly, sometimes we are able to make a difference or comparison between the different situation or different location, maybe on gender, maybe on income, maybe on location. So if these are the some of the question at hand, so certainly we go for a quantitative analysis where a structure approach is applied to get the data from a larger population, and where we have an understanding what we are going to measure, and we are willing to answer in numerical. A semi-structured approach where actually a systematic or follow journal procedure, but data are not collected in exactly the same way every time. It means it's open-ended. We actually ask the people to answer maybe partially same question, but they answer differently, and maybe we are actually having a different follow-up question. So it means all the questions may not be remain same, few questions maybe remain same. That's why it's a semi-structured. More open and fluid. So more open means actually the discussion can lead to somewhere else which is not planned. Fluid, it means it is an interactive session where the follow-up question come and the person who is answering, they may lead somewhere that is actually not pre-decided by the scholar. Doesn't follow a rigid script, because in a structured way we have a questionnaire at hand where the data is collected only on the question that we already prescribed. But here it is not a rigid script. It means there may be open-ended questions, there may be follow-up questions, and the discussion may lead beyond the limit, but we think we are looking at. May ask for more detail. People can tell what they want in their own. So this is a semi-structured approach. So I think so these things already know many of the scholars here. When to use the semi-structured approach, conducting exploratory study or work, seeking understanding theme or the issue, need narrative or story, want in-depth, rich backstage information, even how you do, why you come to the PhD program, why you come to the certain, why you buy a certain item, why you behave in a certain situation in a certain manner, uh, why you are actually involved in a certain income source. So these are the question at hand. So we are looking for a background why you are actually behaving, why you are doing in a certain manner. Seek to understand the result of the data that are unexpected. It means there may be uncovered realities or the issues that may not be actually reported somewhere else. So that's why it's sometimes called the semi-structured approach, is actually giving some new insight to the issue or the phenomenon. Okay, so another way of the data collection that actually broadly divided abstractive or unobstructive method of the data. Obstructive mean it means we actually stop someone, abstract someone, and then actually ask question to have the data or actually collect the data by intervening someone. So that's become obstructive data collection technique where the tools are normally interview, survey, or focus group. It means we ask them, okay, can you please answer the interview question, survey, or the focus group? It means we are intervening, we are abstracting. Unabstracting means actually we are not asking them to answer, we are just actually maybe looking at them, observing them, not giving information that they are actually under observation. And sometimes these are the documents we are looking at, or maybe the Google Earth, or maybe some observation that no one know as a respondent. But there are ethical issues that we need to keep in mind, like we must inform the people that they are under observation and we are looking to them so that we can collect data and have some answer for our question. How to decide on the data collection approach? So as I told you, all the approaches are good enough, but actually depend on the situation and the question at hand. Choice depend on the situation. Each technique is more appropriate in some situations than other. All techniques are subjective, right? We need to understand all the approaches, first hand, secondary, the semi-structure, or structure approaches of the data collection. They have their own pros and cons, and we need to actually understand how and where to use and what are the precautions or the precondition to use. So we need to keep it that. Similarly, another approach is coming forward that we need to triangulate the approaches for the data collection. So the approaches in which we can actually triangulate, it means the more of the method are employed to have the data. Normally, we have a unisource, it means one person answering all the questions. So we must have triangulation of method, triangulation of sources, triangulation of evaluators. So triangulation of method, so we must be applying more than one method to collect the data. Like when we are having the data from the survey, so we can have the data from the interview as well, structure interview. So these two approaches can be applied. Maybe some people are actually giving the survey responses and few of them are actually interviewers. So this is actually triangulation method. So triangulation of the sources, it means the one person is answering, that is a unisource, but multiple source, it means more than one source is actually applied or utilized to collect the data. So normally we are actually collecting the data from the consumer. So maybe we are actually having some data from the seller or the shopkeeper or the business houses who are actually selling a certain kind of item. So that's a multiple source. Similarly, in organizational studies, so we are actually sometimes collecting data for the employees. So we must actually collect data from the leaders of these employees of the organization. Similarly, when we are actually collecting the data from the student, so we can actually collect the data from the head teacher or administrator of the school. So this is actually triangulation of the source. Triangulation of the evaluator, collection of the same information for more than one evaluator. Means the data that is actually need to be vet or need to be verified. So maybe, like you can say in a normal, when we are asking the student to actually give their CGPA. So actually one way they are evaluating themselves. So that maybe we are collecting from another source or maybe university record or the college record where the grades are. So triangulation of evaluator is a kind of increasing accuracy in the data when we are applying the triangulation of method, triangulation of sources, triangulation of evaluators. So when we are actually dealing with these methods, there are advantages or challenges. So we need to keep in mind for all the strategies for the data production. Like when we have the secondary source of the data available, so it is one of the tool or a way that we have to have data, but keep in mind, uh, bring some benefit of less expensive, less time to assess the data. So we have the data readily available to us in a less cost, but there are challenges. The coding or the other problem related to the coding or the meaning, what the number mean that we have in the data, what it means, what the statement means. Data must not be exactly what we need. That is the biggest issue. That the data is collected with some other purpose by the first hand, by the researcher. When the data is available to us, it may not have the same meaning and understanding for us. we need to be understanding two that have the same meaning for us as the first research. You may be finding difficult to get this assess the data. That is one issue. The data is collected by some authority, some person, some scholar, and they are not willing to hand it over. But when it is handed over, then the other issue, the coding issue, then the meaning issue are there. You have to have verified validity and reliability of the data beforehand, before actually assessing or before using the data. So it is for available data, so there are costs. So advantage, it's readily available, it's less cost and time, but challenge that there are error, there are issues in the meaning, and there may be exact data is not available what we are looking for, and maybe sometimes the validity and reliability of the data is an issue that we need to keep in mind, and we need to answer these questions beforehand for using or actually applying some kind of analysis on the in observation. So again, it's very handful to actually observe the people to have first-hand information from the behavior that we are actually observing or they are exhibiting in front of us. So advantage collect data on the actual or self-reported behavior or perception, which is real-time versus retrospective. So again, it's a real time, or maybe they are actually reflecting it back in some other. So these are some of the advantage that this data is reported, and they are actually the actual people who are reporting it. But there are issues that relate to it, that is observer bias, potential unreliability. So actually there are many issues like reporting in a more acceptable fashion. That is one of the issues. So the actually acceptance bias, that more people like to behave in a way, there is more acceptance for them for the public. So, but there is observer bias as well, because we are looking at something and we as a researcher maybe having some bias, so that I can come into the data production. The data that is collected is potentially unreliable. Interpretation and holding challenge. Sampling can be a problem. It's a labor intensive, a low response rate. Many of time when you ask the people to collect the data, so many people say they are busy, they are unwilling, or maybe they accept, but later on they may not respond. So these are some of the issues related to the observation. Semi-structure survey, structure or semi-structure survey. When we are actually developing, so development is very challenging for structure survey. We need to actually go into detail for the concept, then the concept definition, then the scale of the concept, and then actually we need to make, sometimes we just need to adopt, or sometimes we need to actually alter or tailor it according to our needs. So it requires a issue or effort in development. Other way is easier to complete, easier to analyze. Easier to complete because when we are developing, so we make our best effort to make it more understandable and answerable by the people who are actually giving response to. So it becomes a structure one. So people just read the question item and then actually they give a reply, maybe in terms of a yes or no or the Likert scale, very likely, less likely, more likely. So they just reply or answer. So it has become easier to complete and then actually easier to analyze. But the development is very difficult. It offers us efficiency in a way to actually collect a larger. So that's why many people actually go for a structured survey where actually they want to collect a larger data, and it becomes easy to complete and analyze, but development requires a lot of time. In a semi-structure kind of a survey, easier to develop. It's quite easier than the structure survey. Open-ended questions are more than the closed-ended question what we have in the structure survey. It's more difficult to complete because the respondent need to reply in a detailed fashion, or maybe they need to write, or maybe they need to narrate. So that's why it's difficult to complete than the structure survey. Burdens of people to complete as a self-help questionnaire, harder to analyze, but provide a rich source of data. So many people find it difficult to write or to narrate their self. So that's why it's become an issue. It becomes harder to analyze because there is no number actually. There are narratives. So on the other way, it's provide a rich source. Interpretation of open-ended responses subject to bias because they narrate their self and maybe it's up to the researcher how they understand the narration provided by the. So it means there is a contrast between structure and semi-structure survey. Structure survey are difficult to develop. Semi-structure easy to complete and analyze for the structure interview. Easy, not that easy to complete and analyze in a semi-structure interview. More efficient and the larger sample may be connected with the structured interview survey, but here in the semi-structure, it's quite problematic to connect as well as people find it difficult to answer and maybe subject to bias for the open-ended question answer provided by the respondent. The survey is actually one of the most utilized source for the data collection. It brings the benefit that we can actually best way to understand what people think, believe, and perceive, and how they actually tell of themselves. But the challenge, people may not accurately recall their behavior or may be reluctant to reveal their behavior. It is illegal or to stigmatized. So many people find it difficult actually to recall their memory to give some answer. Like even so many people right now taking the project about the COVID, and COVID is already gone and 2 years. So many people find it very difficult to recall the 2 year back memory right now and give an answer. So sometimes these are the some of the issues or challenges related to this. What people think they do and so say they do is not always the same as what they actually do. So that's the issue. Like mostly when we are actually using the survey, so we need to actually ask about their right now or their life right. Maybe we are actually sometimes are actually called as ask them to recall their memory, and it may not be good enough to actually recall the memory after some point. So these are some of the challenges. So advisable that only ask the behavior that they are exhibiting right, not the behavior they are exhibiting 5 years ago, 10 years ago, or some time ago. Another technique for the data collection that is focus group. So focus group is more related to the qualitative, but again, some quantitative can be done. So the advantage, certainly we know that some people we call them and actually collect the data in one go, maybe 5, 6, 7, 8 people come together and they have a group discussion. And from that group discussion, we collect the data. So it may be quick and may take less staff time than in-depth. In-person interview allow flexibility to make challenges, changes in process and question can explore different perspective can be fun. It means when we are actually having a stakeholder kind of analysis, we have to focus on the different walk of the life. And when they come together, so we have an in-depth and quite interactive session to have multiple aspects of the issue. So that's what we are looking for as an advantage of the focus group. But the issues or the challenge related to the focus group, it's a time consuming. Participant may not be representative of the population. Again, it can be solved that we need to select the people to become the focus group member quite rigorously, possibly biasing the data. Group may be influenced by moderator or dominant group member. That are some of the issues that can be tackled by the moderator. Sometimes there are one focus group member that is more spoken and they lead the discussion. So moderator actually can intervene and can manage it. But sometimes moderator are actually leading the discussion that create a problem because they are leading in one way where they want to answer, they want to portray that the right option is with the moderator. So these are some of the challenges, but again, focus group is very famous for the data collection from the community, and actually it possibly give us a more understanding towards the different aspects or the perspective that prevail in a society, like consumer, seller, government, supplier, middleman. So when we have the answering these kind of question or the issues, the focus group is quite advanced. So another way of collecting data, that is diary or self-reported checklist. So again, many people are actually writing the diary. It's again a qualitative kind of technique for the data collection. So advantage, it can capture in-depth detailed data that might be otherwise forgotten. Again, some people actually having the writing a diary, like a manager writing diary every day, writing their activities every day. A student writing a diary every day. So these are becoming a rich source of the data. So it can actually give us understanding, collect data on how people use their time, can collect sensitive information, what are the issues that are learning, if a student is writing a learning diary. Similarly, a manager, the timeline, the issues they are facing, the hardship from the top management or the immediate manager. So these are some of the advantages to have a first-hand information. Supplement interview, provide richer data. So again, you have a diary, then you have an interview. So actually, triangulation of method actually give rise to a much broader understanding. Challenge requires some literacy, because certainly many people don't like to write diary because it requires effort, and then the literacy in writing in any language may change behavior. So many people actually may have a different meaning in years ago when they are student or right now. It change. They may not actually have the same understanding, same behavior what they have sometimes. Require commitment and discipline, because the writer who are writing the diary, they have to be having writing a diary frequently or in a self-disciplined manner. Data may be incomplete or inaccurate. As a human being, we have an understanding that we don't have the same time or the effort or the resources available to us to actually write the diaries, because it's always an effortful activity. So sometimes there are incomplete or inaccurate data. Poor handwriting are difficult to understand phrases, because many people may not be actually writing in full statement or sentences, or sometimes use the shorthand or abbreviations that may not be good enough to make understanding. So that are some of the challenges related to the diary or the self-reporting. Another way of the data collection, that is actually the expert judgment, that we are actually going to be some expert people, and we ask them about the issue and then actually have some understanding about the issue. Advantage is fast, relatively inexpensive, but certainly when they actually the expert accept to give their feedback, response. Challenges are related to that expert opinion, weak for impact evaluation, because it's only given one aspect, that's expert, maybe the community or the consumer or the businessman, they have a different understanding. Maybe based mostly on perception, because it's only one community that's given understanding. Value of data depend on how credible the experts are perceived. So many studies right now, maybe you come across where the factor of adoption, factor of managerial issue, on the quality management. So these are actually done by the expert judgment, where the experts are given some of the relevant factor, and we ask them to rate or rank these factors. So where actually mostly these studies are actually utilizing. So there is one method that is quite getting famous, uh, that is called ISM, interpretive structure modeling. So where mostly the expert opinions are built. So first of all, we actually collect some data from the literature, and from that literature, we actually pinpoint or take out some of the important factors that may be affecting adoption, non-adoption, barrier for the adoption, any technology or any issue or maybe related to the technology. So then actually based on the expert opinion, so we create a structure. So it becomes interpretive structure modeling, So it is another kind of analysis, but again, qualitative analysis where the expert opinions are utilized. So actually, they're understanding which are the most fundamental issues or the barriers for the adoption or non-adoption of a technology or of behavior that they associate. The last technique, again, it's reported here, but again, there are more techniques available. But for today, the last Delphi technique, where actually we are dealing with collecting the data from few participants and the participants remain anonymous. So the one way it's inexpensive, it's free for social pressure because people don't know each other. Like in a focus group, they are not sitting in front of each other and giving their opinion. So they are actually away from each other, maybe use of technology, or maybe we ask their opinion independently. So they are free of social pressure, personality influence, and individual dominance. Is conducive for independent thinking. It means people are giving their own thoughts, their own understanding. So it allows the sharing of information. So these are some of the advantages related to the technical challenge. They may not be reflected. So certainly, sometime when we call some expert or representative who represent some community, so mostly it is a convenience based. So it may not be actual. Has tendency to eliminate extreme position. So certainly when we are actually getting the data or getting the information, so many people actually don't give their extreme position. So it may actually have a tendency for eliminating the. So many people, when you ask, so they don't actually give the actual sense or actual understanding. So extreme position may be eliminated. Requires skill in written communication because in a data collection, because we need to focus on the data recording as well. So it is quite required. Assembly in focus group or the other interview as well, where the communication skill for the writer, the data collector is quite important. Require time and participant commitment to actually provide the data, and they need to actually be there for some time and answer maybe critical question as well. So these are some of the issues that relate to the utilizing the Delphi technique for the data collection. So today, actually, we talk about some practical issues that we need to deal with while collecting the data. We already have an instrument, then actually we apply the instrument to collect the data. So there are actually multiple tools available for the data collection. But right now, where we are, so we actually always advise to have a triangulation of the sources or the method and the respondent so that we have a varied picture of the reality so that we can actually bank on and create some reality for the public to understand that what is going on and how the things can be happening around and why and how we can actually get some answer for our reality, what we what the problem that we try to solve. So today we are actually try to learn and understand and debate that the quantitative and qualitative data, the data collection strategies, and the triangulation of the data approaches. So today we cover this so that we can have understanding. So after having the data instrument, we need to collect the data and some of the issues that are quite practical when we are actually collecting the data. So the next week we will be discussing about the data analysis, the reporting of the data analysis, so that we have a clarity that all the issues that we need to actually from the data design to data analysis are done. In the week 9 and 10, we will be discussing about the reporting of the result as well as the discussion. And then actually we take up with the all the different 5 to 6 parts of the research paper writing, that from the introduction, literature review, methodology, data analysis, and data discussion, or the analysis discussion and the conclusion. So this is all for the today. So I will be here for next 2 to 3 minutes so that if you have any questions, so I will be willing to answer it. So that's all for me. So thank you. I will be here for 2 3 minutes. Okay, so thank you for all. So that's all for the today. So hopefully to see you again in the next. Assalamu alaikum and